Welcome, folks, to the Three-Man Weave College Basketball Show hosted by SportsbookReview.com. Oh, yes, it is Maui Monday here on week 2 of our program. Unfortunately, my wardrobe handler, as you can see, was MIA this morning. My cohorts, Kai and Jim, are dressed for success. It's the kickoff of the artist formerly known as Maui, which will be taking place not on the island in the Pacific, but in Asheville, North Carolina. We'll call it Paradise East for the sake of trying to keep the Maui and its allure still the same. Mr. McKeon, Mr. Root, I'll start with you, Mr. Root, who's in Vegas, the closest to the usual home of Maui. How are you doing on this fine Monday morning?
Well, Matt, it is a Monday after a holiday week, and some would say this is not a holiday week anymore, but I would say Maui is always a holiday week. So I am very excited. It's going to be a wonderful tournament. I'm going to miss the soft rims, the lovely Lahaina Civic Center rims. But, you know, Asheville, we got a great field. I think 7 of the 18, maybe 6, or maybe even 8. Maybe all 8 could win it. It's a great field. It's kind of balanced. And there's not like a top 5 team that's the clear favorite. So it's going to be a very fun tournament. I'm looking forward to it.
Mr. McKeon, your thoughts?
Yeah, hopefully the spirit of Maui brings the softness of the rims to Asheville. I'm also excited. I got my parrots on. Just excited to watch some daytime hoops once again, Matthew.
You guys look suave, and I hope for those of you taking your work calls at home, Zoom, Teams, whatever the cool kids are using in the corporate world these days. I'm no longer a part of that. Make sure to get dressed up. Put some Hawaiian gear on. Like, we all know what the true, what Maui means to us college basketball fans. So make sure to show your cohorts in the corporate world what that's all about. Folks, please check out SBRodds.com. All of our line referencing today will come from that site. A great aggregator of all the current lines that we will be citing throughout the show. SBRpicks.com/NCAA or BB, for our content, along with tons of other game breakdowns. And let's start right there on the East Coast, the artist formerly known as Maui. We got 4 matchups today, including day ball. But we'll start off with the late night.
Wait, Matt, what about we got takeaways from the weekend, baby?
I'm just too excited to talk about games. You're right. We have to reflect. Let's back up here. It was a long and strenuous, I would say, weekend of turkey hoops. We learned a lot. We also overreacted a lot, didn't we? And I think we'll start off with a few learnings. Kyle, what did you learn from the last 4 days of college basketball?
Well, Matt, I'm kind of confused about Oakland, a team I've been bashing. They all of a sudden were competitive and played close with Michigan, which kind of went into the bigger theme of big favorites just not being good yesterday. It's total flip-flop. It's a snip, snap, Michael Scott reference. I don't understand it. I guess that's the kind of season we're going to be in for this year.
Yeah, it makes no sense to me. To see Oakland lose by 120 on the opening night and then basically have Michigan on the ropes last night, that's the biggest Jekyll and Hyde team I've ever seen in college basketball. Jim, what did you learn?
On Friday, I kind of waxed poetic about how good Gonzaga was. It's like, man, this is the clear number 1 team. They're incredible. But I got a tip of the cap to Baylor for what they did this weekend, which is kind of masked by the fact that their games are being played on like a closed circuit secret government stream known as Flow Hoops. But they whipped up on a shorthanded Louisiana team, and even more impressively, just destroyed Washington, a team that they lost to at the beginning of last season, won by basically 30 points yesterday, dominated that game start to finish. I think if that had been like a featured ESPN game, we'd probably be talking about this clear top 1-2 of Gonzaga Baylor, but they're almost flying slightly under the radar because that game wasn't televised.
Yeah, it makes no sense why. Flow Hoops is kind of like the enemy of college basketball right now, charging outrageous rates for, basically
costs more than Netflix, Amazon Prime, and Hulu combined. Flow Hoops.
Yeah.
Insane.
Do they have subscribers outside of the 3 of us? I can't believe they're actually doing, making legitimate revenue. But anyway.
Why do you not subscribe? I do not subscribe, Matthew.
Oh, I do. I have to have it. I can't not watch Baylor hoops.
It's $30 a month.
No. It's not cheap. Anyway, that's a travesty. What's not a travesty is the A10. The Atlantic 10 looks better than advertised this year. This is my takeaway from the weekend. We saw 2 of the top dogs look stellar in their opening debuts. First, we saw the Billikens hosting LSU, a mega-talented team at home. Javante Perkins, Gibson, Jimerson, 2 sharpshooters for the Billikens led the charge. The Billikens were kind of a gritty, physical, beat you down with size and strength the last few years. Now they actually have scoring, and it's a really deadly combination. Travis's 4 team looks awfully strong. They were drowned out by the overwhelmingly large headline of Richmond the Itsy Bitsy Spiders going into Lexington. Can we say dismantling Kentucky? I felt like the margin was close to 10 plus, but Richmond handled the Wildcats very impressively.
Controlled the entire second half. Like it was their game. Kentucky was trying to get back in it the whole time, and Richmond just wouldn't let them. I mean, you got a whole bunch of 4 senior starters, 22, 23 years old, and Kentucky doesn't have a single returner playing right now because Keon Brooks is out. So it's a completely new roster against a veteran team. Really tough matchup for Kentucky. Richmond looked great. It's an incredible top 1-2 atop the A10. And even somebody like VCU looked pretty good this weekend. We have yet to see Dayton play, but they're going to be solid. St. Bonaventure. So, yeah, A10 looks great.
The thing about Richmond, too, is it's a dream scheduling spot, right? Like, you have all that continuity experience coming back. You're catching a super-duper young Kentucky team. We're just rooting for Chris Mooney. I mean, his at-large hopes were basically ruined last year by COVID. So to start off the year with a win at Rupp, I think now they're in the driver's seat for an at-large spot. They just can't collapse in the A10, and he'll probably be dancing. Well done, Mr. Mooney. So much for looking back. Let's look forward to the Maui Wowie. We're going to head out east. We'll start with the late-night game tonight, Stanford versus Alabama, which I think might be one of the, probably the sneaky best game of this field. You have Stanford making their debut, first game of this season. We've seen that spot be a little bit dicey for some teams. On the flip side, Alabama showed zero rust or disjointedness in their opening game, trouncing of Jacksonville State, a very good Jacksonville State, which we learned the last few days. Jim Root is the token Alabama flag bearer. I will kick it off to him for his thoughts on this game. The line started at 1, already up to 2.5. So I assume Jim's $1 million bet probably moved that line. Is that accurate, Jim?
Yeah, they're not letting me get a second million down on Alabama. It's kind of frustrating, but
raise the limits.
Yeah, come on. It's the Tide. It's my Tide. No, this is going to be a very good game. Kind of a stylistic, interesting matchup here with Alabama constantly wanting to run. Stanford didn't really play anybody like that last year. I mean, Arizona State probably the closest thing, but this Alabama team is just pedal to the metal at all times, going to fire up threes. They did not make them against Jacksonville State and still won by 24. I think they could kind of run out Stanford if things go well, but Stanford does bring in a great athlete, freshman Zaire Williams. They've got guys that can match up with Alabama. Quinterly, the Villanova transfer for Alabama, had a great first game, but now you throw Dejon Davis on him, who has a ton of length and quickness in the backcourt, and he might be a little more frustrated than he was in his very prolific debut. I'm still going with the Tide, and I like the over as well. I think I like the over more just because I think Alabama will be able to dictate the tempo here.
Yeah, I think that's the key. Mr. McKeon, do you have any total leans here? Are you looking at his side?
No, I got total lean. It's offensive explosion for Alabama versus tough as nails defense in Stanford. We think, Ken Pom thinks, Matt, I know you think, the Tree could be a top 10 defensive team this year.
I stand by that take.
Very curious to see how that dichotomy clashes tonight. Dejon Davis, a poised ball handler. I know we have some mixed feelings about him as a ball handler, as a scorer, but I don't know if Alabama can really speed him up, make them play their game. I'm curious to see how Zaire Williams looks. I'm not sure Alabama has an answer for Da Silva inside. That's going to be a matchup I'm watching closely. I leaned Alabama with Jim, but at +3 for Stanford now, I'm kind of leaning the Tree. However, the over is going to be one of my official plays tonight. I do like this one getting up there in points.
I think you both are onto something with the over. I'm going to stay away because, as Kai alluded to, I am a devout believer in the Stanford Tree defense. It's basically a forest, no pun intended. They just have length in spades. But if the tempo plays as Alabama dictates, which I think it definitely could, then the 150 certainly has some value there. All right, moving right along to probably the second best matchup, in my not-so-humble opinion, as the Indiana alumnus of this organization. Tips off at 2:30 Eastern time. The Hoosiers taking on the Friars of Providence. We see the line hovering right around IU -1 right now. I think it opened at -2. So kind of right in that, bouncing back and forth in that one, that little variance range there. I'm going to give it off to Jim to start, but Jim, I want you to give it right back to me, a little give and go, because I have a few takes here on the Hoosiers I'd like to spew out here. Do you have a strong lean on this game?
I like the under at first. It's been bet down 3 points from 140 to 137. Yeah. People see the physicality here, although, and maybe this will lead into your point, maybe not, I like both backcourts quite a bit. I think Indiana's a little better. They're a little more open this year on offense, so I'm not as locked into the under, especially now that the total's gone down. Matthew, where do you lean here?
That's what I was going to say. The fact that it's come down so far makes you want to bet against the grain. The guard play for both teams this year is a lot more stable than it has been the last couple of seasons, in my opinion. Indiana especially. For those listening to our podcast, Devontae Green's been a whipping boy for us for many years now. And now we saw Christian Lander, the 5-star freshman, come in, play very solid in the opening game. Rob Finney, this kind of steady, measured point guard, looks healthy for once. So I think Indiana's guard play looks very strong. You got David Duke in Providence starting to play his best ball. Both teams look excellent against inferior competition in their openers. We don't know a ton about each team yet, but both seem to be trending in the right direction. Kai, I know you're a big Providence guy. Are you going to stand with the Friars in this one?
I am a big Providence guy, but I'm not sure I trust them to score enough points in this one. Indiana's defense versus Providence offense, that discrepancy is bigger than the other end of the floor, in my opinion. I don't think anybody is guarding Trace Jackson-Davis for Providence. They have no answer for him. However, I do think Indiana can slow down David Duke. Al Durham comes to mind as one of those defenders. They have kind of a bevy of perimeter guys. I'm surprised his line went down to Indiana -1. I'd probably lean the Hoosiers at that price. I was kind of expecting it to go up because I see Indiana as the better team matchup-wise in this.
Yeah, I agree. To me, the price is about right. The line at around 1 to 2. It's hard to justify having Indiana favored by 4 or something like that. But just my gut tells me Indiana's the right side here. I will probably ride with my Hoosiers, trying to put my bias aside as hard as that possibly is. Have a little bit of little green and crimson repping today as well. So
we know Ed Cooley likes to trip up a little in the non-conference, set himself up for a meteoric rise come Big East time.
Yeah, he bled our wallets dry last year with that just abysmal start to the season. And since I am hosting today, by the way, I will need to appoint Kai as the comment czar.
I got you, man.
Thank you. So I see some chatter coming early, so make sure we document some of those initial matchup takes. We will get to those about halfway through the show here. But the third matchup of the Maui Invitational, UNC versus UNLV, the Tar Heels versus the Runnin' Rebs.
Oh, Matt, you skipped Texas Davidson.
Oh, I did see that. I don't like this lineup at all, Jim.
This is a new tradition.
Yeah, Matt's
do my own
loving outlines.
That's war against the outline. Is
the production team hates me. The production team hates the days in which Matt hosts. Texas Davidson is the first matchup. Starts at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The big question here: Andrew Jones, who missed the first game for the Longhorns against UT Rio Grande Valley. I believe he's supposed to play tonight. They kept him out for precautionary reasons for a little bit of a minor cough. Obviously, in the COVID world, we respect that. They didn't need him, though.
Survivor, so you really got to be careful with him.
Yeah, right, exactly. And we all root for him, and we always will. But I think, they didn't really need him against UT Rio Grande Valley. Solid mid-major team. They ran all over them in the opening game, looking very much like the highly touted team that we had them that preseason. I'll be honest, I don't really have a strong take in this one. Jim, I'll kick it to you. Do you see Davidson giving the Longhorns a fight here, or do you think Texas exerts their talent and athleticism superiority?
I like Davidson here, just where the number is at. It's up around 8.5, I think, even in some places. I think they can hang around. They're playing 2 bigs this year, which should help their defense. I think in the past, Bob McKillop's teams have really struggled on defense against high major competition. I think they can battle. Kellen Grady's a nice scorer, and Hyunjung Lee has shown the sophomore breakout I think we expected, or at least in his first game, played well against High Point. I do want to throw out a quick cautionary stat here, though. Over the last 5 years, Bob McKillop in non-conference, trying to figure things out with his team.
Yep.
He's 22-35 against the spread. Nice. Just 38.6%. So if you're going to back Davidson here, which I'm kind of thinking about doing, I'm going to do it carefully. I'm going to tread lightly, just because his teams don't always match up that well against the Power 5, especially early as he figures out his rotation. What about you, Kai?
Yeah, Matt, I dare you to call on me first to lead things off. You won't. Texas Davidson.
Routine cannot be shaken.
Texas Davidson. This feels like this is a Richmond, Kentucky light almost. We saw yesterday. Overwhelming size and athleticism versus a coach that teaches fantastic offense in Bob McKillop. The difference here, in my opinion, is Davidson's defense is nowhere near the level of Richmond defense. I think Texas is going to score like a turnstile against Davidson. It's going to be constant. Wow. However, Davidson's going to it's true. Davidson's going to be able to shoot against Texas. I still think they're going to put up points. Davidson was life and death against High Point. I mean, that score was not indicative of how that.
We lost.
We have some internet loss. Let's scramble here.
We'll carry
I think what
it.
Kai was going to say was a very astute point that the offenses have a little bit of a matchup edge in this one. However, what we did see from Davidson early on. Roger, testing. Ky, we back?
There he is.
Do we have you?
There he is.
I'm sorry, guys. Davidson, life and death with High Point. Shot 11 for 27, still barely won that game. I lean Texas in the over. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Loud and clear. Loud and clear.
Good. Sorry. Matt, I turned the chat off. I'm no longer your czar. My internet's struggling.
Wow.
Okay.
Jim,
I will step in. Pinch hitting at czar is Jim Root.
Well, I mean, hey, I would do it, but I can't even follow the outline, so I think someone needs to take over as czar here. Ky, I think I agree with you with the Texas lane. It sounds like from the early total movement down from 137 or down to 134 from 137 as I look at the SBRodds.com page. Some people disagree with you, but there may be a little bit of Davidson's played two bigs early, I think, as Jim talked about earlier, or like this last night in our internal forum. So it could actually be a good way to combat some of Texas' side up front. It comes down to pace, and it's just tough for me to predict how fast Texas will play against a team like Davidson who, wants to execute in the half court. I think we've seen Texas in the past be complacent to slow it down. Much to our chagrin, we think they should be kind of running up and down. If we were Shaka Smart's advisors, that's what we tell them to do. But we'll see how.
Also tell him to shave his head.
And shave his head.
Other thing.
It's funny. I think
Frank Martin's advice.
Yeah, exactly. So Frank Martin, Shaka Smart need to get on the phone and discuss their mistakes with their hair decisions. That's again, if we are hair advisors, that's what we would recommend. I have no more takes here. Let's continue down the outline. The fourth game of the Maui, the Runnin' Rebels versus the Tar Heels. UNLV against North Carolina. Jim's pseudo hometown team, the semi-new resident of Las Vegas out there in the desert. The Runnin' Rebs got run all over in the opener by Montana State. A head-scratching result for a team that, Jim, I know you were high on. Sorry, Ky, I'm going to defer to Jim here first. I apologize. Do we think that was an anomaly, or is that cause for concern in this matchup?
That's a real cause for concern in this one. Montana State shot 56% inside the arc, and they are not anywhere near the possibly best front line in the country that North Carolina is. UNLV is going with 4 guards to start, all of whom are like 6'3" or smaller. If one of them has to guard Armando Bacot or Garrison Brooks, I don't see how UNLV does anything on the defensive glass here. This could be a bloodbath in the paint, but I do think UNLV can score a little bit too. They've got 2 scoring guards in David Jenkins and Bryce Hamilton that can get things done. We're not really sure about UNC's perimeter defense. They're still throwing Leaky Black out there, and he should be good at defense because he is a very, very poor offensive player. But what I like here most is the over. I think both teams want to run, both will run, and both can score against the other team. So UNLV, UNC over is definitely a play for me.
Yeah, this game is. Sorry, Matthew. Go ahead,
Ky. No, go ahead.
This game is classic. This game is classic number versus matchup for Ky here. My number says UNLV plus 13. I'm going to take it. However, the matchup, like Jim said, the size discrepancy, the UNC front line scares the hell out of me. Would not be surprised if they blow the game out. However, I am going to stick with the Runnin' Rebels at this price. I don't think they're quite as bad as they showed against Montana State, who is better than most people think this year. They have a great coach in Danny Sprinkle. Yes. But I will go with the Rebels. I also like the over with Jim on this one as well.
I was caught off guard by I'm just seeing the number climb as we speak right now live on SBRodds.com. The over is getting some steam, so either some folks listening to our show right now are out there and dropping some coin at large sums of money. And thank you. Please just make sure to pay us a little portion of that if this comes to fruition here. But I actually like the over as well, even at the current price at 154.
I'm out.
Is that too high for you, Ky? Too rich for your love? That's fair.
Yep,
I just think, as Jim mentioned, it could be a complete bloodbath inside for the Tar Heels. I also think UNLV wants to get up and down, and UNC will relish in that. And so if UNC gets a pretty soft cushion, they extend to 15, 20 points, I think they take the foot off the gas defensively, and UNLV gets a lot of garbage points late. And so that number will be easily shattered down the stretch, final 8 minutes or so. Are we done with Maui? Can we leave the island, or do we want to stay and just cut the show short?
So does that mean I have to take my shirt off now? I think because we're leaving the island. Yeah.
We will pause the show then for a 5-minute wardrobe change. No, we will not. We will head up north to Bubbleville, Mohegan Sun, where we have the next matchup on our slate, Boston College versus St. John's. That's right. The bubble still has not popped. It's holding strong. This one tips at 6 p.m. Eastern time. Boston College, kind of the darling of the Turkey Day slate. Could have been, shame on us for not mentioning them in our takeaways. They're 2-0 against the spread. Super impressive wins against Villanova and then Rhode Island to follow that up. I'm sorry, in reverse order. So Rhode Island first, then Nova. Is what we saw from Boston College sustainable, or do we think that was a little fluky? I'll start with Ky to give you the lead on this one first.
Yeah, I am actually impressed with Boston College. I think they're kind of for real. Winston Tabbs, who came back from injury, has looked great. Ashton Langford, Rich Kelly, Fred Scott, all transfers, all pretty impressive so far. So I love this game at BC +2. They're now a favorite, so I'm probably staying away from the side in this one. Champagne's status for St. John's is kind of the big thing I'm looking for. If he's playing, it's kind of dicey with the side of Boston College. But I do love the over in this one. Boston College, St. John's. I think there's going to be a lot of points in this one, which is probably against the grain a little bit. I think most people think under when they see these two teams. But I lean Boston College on side, and I do prefer the over in this game.
As Ky mentioned, Champagne, I believe, is questionable currently. I've seen no definitive word on his status. They will also be without Rasheem Dunn, the Johnnies will, who was last year's kind of their primary ball handler to their main point guard. They're kind of deferring that this year to Posh Alexander. So his loss doesn't mean as much to me as it may have last season. On the other side of the ball, Jay Heath, Boston College, is supposed to play tonight per John Rothstein. He's a big piece, very talented sophomore there. Jim, does the health advantage for Boston College play well for you here?
A little bit, but I'm actually going Johnnies. I did see that Champagnie practiced this weekend, and I kind of think he'll play. I know he was touch and go last week, but I think it's about time he makes his debut. It seems like if he's able to practice over the weekend, this is the game you want to get him right for, get him out on the court. I'm going against Ky a little bit here. Now that the Johnnies have swung to a dog, I'm taking the Red Storm. I like Mike Anderson going against Jim Christian. I'll give that slight edge in the coaching matchup to the Johnnies. And I'm going to. I have no lean in the total, so I'll defer that one to you guys, but I will take the Red Storm here.
Yeah, I have no total lean, Ky, unless you want to jump in with your hot take on that one. I'm just seeing, the line hover around pick and the total at 147. Just stay away from me on both ends. I just want to watch this game. I think it'll be a fun one up and down, a lot of offense, shot making on both sides. Would be nice to see Champagne play because I think he's a special player and the Johnnies need him badly. But that's just sit back, kick the feet up, and watch for me.
Matt, over 147. I said it.
Boom. There it is.
Hey, bring it home. Yes.
Ky slams the gavel. Before we move on to our next matchup, should we pause for some comment reaction? Are there any? Are the folks clamoring for any major matchup takes from the Weave?
Well, Nick Gasparetti is asking for thoughts on Eastern Kentucky Xavier. He mentioned Xavier played so many games in a short amount of time. That's right. They had their little Xavier Invitational. The one I'll say here, this is one of my best bets, so I'm not going to give it away yet. This game will be discussed right down that outline coming up in the preview, so we will get that. I think that's the only one that's been specifically called out. Matt J did say we look handsome, so that's good.
Did he say who, or just all three of us? Was it a generic take, or
y'all? It was the collective. This is a handsome group. I think he needs to be careful because it's like that. When there's three people together, you're not looking at anyone individually. If you focus on us, it gets worse. So just keep looking at the group.
Ky, any thoughts on that about our overall collective hotness versus our individual hotness, or should we continue down the slate here?
No, I prefer me and Jim because we're wearing the cool shirts. That's just my opinion, though.
I'm not. My wardrobe handler will be. She'll be put on a pip.
Wait, Matt, real quick.
Oh, yep.
Ed Redmond asking about Bowling Green versus App State.
Oh, I had a strong take, Ed, until some very antsy bettors overnight took away the value, which I liked. I was all over Bowling Green at the initial line. I believe was -1. Now it's up to 2.5, 3. If I can't find it on the odds page, I'm scrolling.
It's still 2.5 right now.
2.5. Okay. Honestly, just even at that price, if you still want some action on it, I would lean Bowling Green. I just think they look pretty good against Michigan in the opening game. Now that Michigan effort doesn't look as good, given what we saw Michigan do with Oakland last night, they kind of just dragged their feet. But Bowling Green has some real athletes, and with Juice Turner back there, and they have some good continuity. They're a team that's not going to struggle early relative to other teams, just because they have kind of that roster intact from last season, just a kind of a copy paste roll forward. Jim, Ky, any thoughts on this one?
There are a couple more questions. We'll hit them at the end, rapid fire. Let's do that. The rest of the comments.
Holster those because we got to talk about Sticky Rick Pitino. The outline, which I follow so sparingly, is showing Siena versus Liberty here, but COVID cancellation. Those will occur throughout the season, folks. Please do mind that. We're just going to have to roll with the punches on that. So to replace that game, we will talk about a sneaky marquee matchup of the evening. Seton Hall hosting Iona. Rick Pitino making his coaching debut, 9 p.m. on FS1. And I hope, I should have checked before, bad show prep on me, that Mr. Bill Raftery is on that call. It should be a doozy. And by doozy, I mean just a fun game to watch. I don't think the game on the court will be very competitive. And I'm sure Kai and Jim will talk about that as I kick it off to them here shortly. But the line has been all over the place to start. I believe it opened at around 22. It's been bet down to 19, which in a vacuum is an insane line, let's be honest. But Iona with the COVID shutdown, Rick Pitino's been very vocal about, just his team's lack of readiness. He's inheriting a whole new roster. They've had minimal time to practice. I'll go to Kai here on this one first. Do you think the line is still insane as it's come down, I believe, to 19? Or are you going to take the other side with the Hall against a very sort of disconnected Iona team?
Yeah, I mean, my first reaction was, holy crap, this spread is high. But I want no action. I want no piece of Iona playing in their first game after this COVID shutdown. Also, Osborne Shema, Asante Gist, both out for this game for Iona. Two projected starters. Gist for sure. Shema, big time JUCO recruit at the 5.
Yep.
I'm gonna lean Seton Hall. I would put a little bit on them in this one. Nothing strong, but I think there could be a blowout in this one. Seton Hall was impressive, I thought, against Louisville. They lost that game, but they hung tough. And Iona could just be really bad to start off the year. It's a team that we think is going to get better. And Rick Pitino is clearly a very, very good coach, but things he has said leading into this game does not give me a lot of confidence. He's basically like, these guys are brand new to me. I have no idea what I'm doing. So I lean Seton Hall on this one, even with 19, 20 points.
I think there's a chance Rick's blowing a little smoke to set himself up for oh, look, we played well. I must be a genius. I can't believe that. But I want no part of Iona. I think you just got to wait and see here. If you take them, you are really gambling. I mean, look what happened to Oakland after they had 3 weeks off and had to go play a power conference team on the road. They got absolutely destroyed by Xavier, just completely run off the court. And I'm worried that could happen to Iona. Not quite in game shape, have not had exhibition scrimmage, anything. And like you guys mentioned, Seton Hall's already played at Louisville. They're a little bit battle tested already. So I don't want to touch this game, to be perfectly honest. I could see it being a blowout, and I can't bet Seton Hall because it's so far against my number. So I'm just staying away here.
So here's a cute little narrative that may influence some of you. Others, you may laugh at it. Take it as you see it, as you hear it. Kevin Lillard, was a longtime assistant under Rick Pitino at Louisville way back when. They used to play each other every year. And on the, I think the 6th matchup in 2007, and by the way, Pitino smacked him pretty much across the board in those matchups. After a 30-point shellacking, Rick Pitino gave Kevin Willard a brand new Rolex as a token of appreciation for the work he did before. I think Kevin Willard comes into this game as sort of like an understudy in the mob or like a Godfather type thing, where now he actually has the power and his former mentor is battened and bruised with this disjointed team. I think Willard's kind of tongue-in-cheek here. I can see him just putting, leaving no, pulling back no punches, just going balls to the wall and running this Iona team out of the gym. So part of me just thinks gun to my head, Seton Hall's the right side here, just because of that kind of little dynamic. But again, could be nonsense, could be real. We'll see what happens.
I think it's Seton Hall or nothing. That's kind of what you got to think about.
Yep.
All right, final game on our slate here before we get to our best bets and some more comment reactions. Auburn at UCF, Central Florida. This game being played in Orlando, so a home one for UCF here. Tips off at 6 p.m. The line's been bouncing around 1.5 on both sides. I now see -1.5 UCF as a slight favorite. Not a lot of action on the total movement. I'll start with Jimbo here. Do you see any strong leans for the Tigers coming off, a fairly questionable, but in some spots encouraging performance against St. Joe and then Gonzaga? I mean, obviously Gonzaga ran them out of the gym, but I mean, I think they'll do that to every team this year.
Yeah. Well, so one first note is that Auburn did not have to travel very far. They were down in Fort Myers. Right. They've been hanging out in Florida already, so it's not like this is not that Auburn is far from Florida in general, but that helps, first of all. And then Auburn's played 2 games. UCF has not debuted yet, which we mentioned earlier in the show has, anecdotally seemed to help the team that has already played because there's no scrimmage, there's no exhibition. So you get those game reps. That really does help, especially for a young Auburn team that definitely looked disjointed defensively. a little bit confused against St. Joe's. Now you go against a UCF team that usually likes to play through the paint, but Colin Smith opted out for the season, their best player, a big power forward scorer inside. I think Auburn probably is my edge here. I would go with the Tigers just for a team that, Bruce Pearl against Johnny Dawkins. I like Pearl in that. And then also just the experience. I was relatively impressed by a few of the guys on this Auburn team.
Yeah.
Flanagan, Jalen Williams, even Powell, the freshman guard, looked pretty solid, hit some shots for them. So I'm going a little more with the known quantity as a dog at UCF, who is just debuting, and I'm not really quite sure what we have there yet. So I'll go Auburn. What about you, Kai?
Yeah, just watching Auburn first couple games, it's a little scary to take the Tigers in this one. I love them if they're a dog, to be honest, but I have my hesitations. We talked about how undisciplined they've looked in their first couple of games, very erratic. UCF has some talent on this team. CJ Walker's eligible from Oregon. Darius Perry's eligible from Louisville. However, they are brand new players to the program. It might take a little bit to mesh. They're still an experienced team. They're a team that's been known for defense over the years. There's no Taco Fall walking through the door this time, thankfully for Auburn. But overall, I'm leaning Auburn. I'm a little hesitant, but if they're a dog, I have to take it. There's value here. In my opinion, they probably should be a favorite, like they opened.
I agree. I like Auburn. I'm looking at the showtime here. We are going long. We have lots of comments to get to, as well as our best bets. Let's jump right to our best bets here and then quickly hit some comments at the end. I will start with Jim. And Jim, before you give out your best bet pick, I believe you have some records to share with the folks. Or are we going to hold off and tally those after today's show?
I think we'll tally them after because I don't know exactly. I think we're something slightly above 500 as a group. We will get that tweeted out at 3MW_CBB. Check out that handle. We'll tweet our best bets and then any other plays. So, like I mentioned, the UNLV, UNC over. Kai mentioned Alabama over. We'll get those tweeted out, and we'll have records on there. But quick, Jim's best bet. I will get to that now. I am going with the Eastern Kentucky and Xavier over. Xavier has, played a bunch of games, as we mentioned, but Eastern Kentucky is one of the most, track meet teams in the entire country. They're missing one of their key guards, Jamaru Brown, for their first two games, but with him back, he's supposed to be back according to fan forum speculation. I think they're going to willingly run. We saw that Xavier can score against a not great defensive team in Oakland, and I don't think EKU can measure up defensively. So I like the over there quite a bit. That's my best bet. Let's go over to Matthew, our host, for your best bet.
And as Jim mentioned, the best bet records, I suspect the followers, listeners, will audit us diligently on that, and we encourage you to do so. So call us out if we miss one on any of that. So thank you. That's why you're here. We need you for that. And fan forums are always a reliable source of information. Great pull there, Jim. My best bet, another total. I'm going to go over as well. Another game. Kansas State against UMKC, the Roos versus the Wildcats. Very simple. I just think Kansas State's a very good over team this year. They really did not score at all in the second half against Colorado. I think they'll struggle to score for a lot of the year, but the key thing here is that they play a little more frenetic this year. Weber wants to kind of pressure and make it more helter-skelter to combat the lack of offensive skill. So even though they don't have the finesse and the shooting that they've had in years past, I think that's overcompensated by the fact that they will play a little faster and games will get a little more out of control, which plays well for the over, especially in this matchup here against the Roos. Kai, your best pick is?
I'm going Chattanooga minus, I saw 6 versus Tennessee Tech. The spread's just too low for me. Tennessee Tech, I think, one of the worst teams in the country. Chattanooga, a team that I think is actually pretty good. They're going to be a factor in the SoCon, middle of the SoCon, we'll say. Light travel, less than 100 miles from Chattanooga to Cookeville. Junior Clay, not sure his status. He didn't play against Indiana. He's Tennessee Tech's best player. Might be playing in this one, even if he is. I still like Nuga. They're just a way better team. I'm expecting them to win by double digits as the favorite. Tennessee
Tech was also missing a sophomore wing starter, Tuwate Williams, in their first game. So, you might get some real roster value in that one if you're going with the mocks.
I will co-sign that. Jim, do we have any requests from the chat forum here for some quick hitter takes before we sign off?
Yep. Benjamin Chernovets has the question. Any thoughts on Pacific Nevada? Either of you jump in there if you've got some.
Kai, I do not. I think the line is fairly priced. I'm going to stay away. Nevada has not really impressed me so far this year, I'll be honest. Your thoughts?
Fairly priced. I disagree. Nevada's impressed me. They beat Nebraska pretty well. They stuck with them the whole game, ended up winning the game. I lean Pacific, but I have nothing strong.
Okay.
I like Nevada. I took them at -4, so I will say that. Thomas Dillon wondering about the Loyola Marymount, Minnesota rematch. Second time in 3 days. Matthew, I'm going to you there.
Yeah, LMU hung around first half. Stan Johnson, the new first-year head honcho there at LMU, has some talent, and he's sort of reincarnating the old LMU Bo Kimball. 40 up and down blistering speed, not quite that fast, but pretty damn close. Doesn't play well as a dog though, so I worry that type of style does not play well when you're trying to stay inside of middle teen type number here. I'm going to go with the Lions, though, in the rematch. I think maybe they make some adjustments and try and potentially ease off the accelerator and not let the Gophers extend.
All right, 2 more quick. Brian Andrews wants to know about Seattle, Cal State, Northridge. I'm not even sure this is on most schedules. I don't think it's on KenPom yet. I'll say that I wanted to bet the over, but Seattle's on a back-to-back tough schedule spot for them. Matt, I think you like the dog?
I like the Matadors. TJ Starks, one of our other whipping boys at 3-9 Wave for multiple years now, joins with Mark Gottfried. He seems to be playing good basketball. I think Northridge has value here.
All right, Cam Mack, this is from Matt Jensen. Cam Mack, I don't think has gotten a waiver yet for Prairie View A&M, so that's why I don't think he's played. Long Beach State at UCLA from Marlon Z. I liked Long Beach at first, but it's been bet down. Tough to have a play there. Texas A&M Corpus Christi for Marilu Navita. I like Corpus Christi as a dog. We saw dogs do really, really well yesterday. I'm not super confident in it at all, but SMU still missing Yorane. No Tyson Jolly either. I think there's maybe some decent value for the Islanders.
And SMU hates playing with leads, Jim. Hates playing with leads.
Yes, they do. Last but not least, Jersey Stewart, Little Rock, and Duquesne. Kai, any thoughts on this pretty intriguing mid-major matchup?
Yeah, nothing strong, Jim. Lean Little Rock, but nothing strong.
All right, yeah, I don't have a ton there either. Duquesne has been bet up. I think it was 4.5, maybe it's 6 now. Little Rock might have a little bit of value, but nothing strong for either of us. And then Leroy Flood, Stanford, Alabama. We mentioned top of the show, so we encourage you to go back and rewatch. We've got a lot of thoughts on that there. Matt, that wraps it up from the comment czar. I'll kick it back to you to close up the show.
Well done, Jim. And as Jim alluded to, sbrpicks.com/NCAABB. That's where you can find all of our content. You can rewatch this show. Also, make sure to use the sbrodds.com tool to line shop. We are big advocates of that on this show. Make sure to do that. Make sure you're getting the best possible price for your money. We'll be back here at the same time tomorrow. The regular scheduled programming, 9 a.m. Central Standard Time, 10 a.m. Eastern. From me, Kai, and Jim, thank you for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow.